Hey, Critical Analysis, this is your video for week 11 over chapter 8, which runs from April 5th through April 11th. So I'm going to go ahead and pop right into week 11 here. And as you can see, again, we're in chapter 8. The readings all have to do with something of psychology, which even if it's not your major, I think it's kind of an interesting topic because we all think and behave in different ways, and sometimes we want to know why others think and behave the way they do. So just as a quick reminder, vocabulary videos are always separate. So your chapter 8 vocabulary video I already uploaded in there, and it's right above the actual quiz in Dropbox, so make sure you check that out separately for vocabulary. But in terms of materials, we're going to have our PowerPoints going. So those two are going to be up and running. I'm going to use a combination of both of those to help with the chapter 8 discussion. And I honestly think that chapter 8 and chapter 9 kind of blend together. In a face-to-face class, I almost kind of lecture and talk about them in conjunction. And so that's why you're going to see maybe some of the things I talk about this week, kind of flow into next week. And so just be aware of that. Like the topic of chapter 8 technically in the textbook is called argument. And then chapter 9 goes over author bias. So those will work together. But for our purposes, we're going to focus on chapter 8 right now. The mastery skills that's going to go with it is author's purpose and tone, and then the one that goes with chapter 9 is author bias. So you can see there's a lot of overlap. So I'll use both of those PowerPoints, and then in terms of our actual assignments, we're going to go ahead and have the text and skill sheet pulled up, so that's already running, and then the practice sheet, and of course the textbook is up running in the background. So before we get into those assignments, I'm going to pull up the PowerPoints and start going over these PowerPoints. So again, chapter 8 is over psychology, and so it's going to talk about like author's argument, and then all the readings will have to do with psychology. So the main concept of this is author's argument, meaning their position or bias, again, kind of a lead into chapter 9, how they feel about a particular issue. And so you look to see, like, is the author presenting facts or opinions? Are they giving multiple perspectives? What is their tone? Why did they write this particular piece of text? Do they quote anyone or anything? And so all of those come into play here, and so we're going to talk about a lot of those concepts. So to look at the validity of an author's argument, you look to see, like, how are they using conclusions? Are they using generalizations? So you want to look to see, you have to understand, like, the topic and the main idea, and this kind of goes back to everything that we've talked about. Like, whenever you read something, you have to be able to walk away with the topic, the who or what, and the main idea, their point, the most important thing they want you to know about that topic. And so you need to look to see, are they presenting an argument? If so, is it believable? What kind of evidence is supported? And when we say evidence, it could be like facts, meaning statistics, case studies. It could be like observations or witness testimonies. So you also have to look to see, whenever they make an argument, are they using relevant information? Are they using logical information? Are they using believable information? I think it's easy sometimes people will try to make arguments and they bring up facts that maybe are not even connected to what the basis of the argument is. And so you always have to make sure, is the author doing these things? Are they making sure they're using relevant information, logical information, and believable information? So you want to make sure that you're looking at this, because it's important when you are reading the kind of text that you will be reading in your college courses, to be able to identify if an author is biased, if they're presenting some sort of argument, what their purpose is, do they have a particular tone, because authors can try to persuade you to believe one way or the other based on their own personal opinion if you're not able to identify that. You also have to make sure that you try to let your own point of view kind of set aside so that it's not interfering with evaluating the information that's in front of you. Sometimes we ourselves are so biased, it's hard for us to read something that doesn't align with our thinking, but that's when it's even more important to kind of set our opinion aside, take in the information, and then based on that, make decisions. So here are some more types of support. I mentioned a few of these already, examples, stats, different kind of like anecdotal evidence, opinions. So that is kind of the basis of the chapter. I also have a different PowerPoint that goes through a few more things. So this is all relating back to critical thinking, which is one of your mastery skills that we'll look at in week 13. But this is talking about the process of critical thinking in general. There are certain things you have to know and do. And of course, we've already talked about fact and opinion. Fact and opinion is the basis of your critical thinking. Like, you need to be able to determine between fact and opinion, and we talked about that back in chapter 6, which was just a couple weeks ago. So I won't go over those slides again, but they can serve as a reminder if you wanted to pull this up again. I did have a few people struggle with the fact and opinion homework and knowing the difference between fact and opinion and sometimes how they can be blended together. So if that is something you're struggling with, please let me know, reach out. I can, make an appointment, go over some examples with you, whatever you would like. So here is where we start to look at kind of the current chapter 8 and 9 content. So knowing argument has to also rely on the purpose. What is the purpose an author had in mind for writing? So to find the purpose, you ask, why did the author write this? What was their point in writing this particular piece of writing? What were they trying to do? And so here are the most common author purposes: to inform, which is just what it sounds like, to give information, textbooks, newspapers. To persuade, to try to convince you to believe a certain way. So whenever, the political campaigns or advertisers, they're trying to make you believe or disbelieve something. Entertain is just what it sounds like: make you laugh, make you emotional. A lot of TV shows are, obviously, this is their purpose. To narrate is to tell a story. So if you, went throughout your day and you came home and someone said, how was your day? You go through the order of events, you're narrating. So telling a story in the order that it occurred. And then describe. Now, description, most people, when they read, they do picture what they're reading. Description goes above that and beyond that. It's really invoking as many senses as possible, trying to make you see, smell, taste, hear, feel what's going on. Okay, so those are the general purposes. And again, how do you determine purpose? Well, you ask, why did the author write this? Look at the topic. Look at the main idea. So you have a little example here. The ocean tides are a result of the gravitational pull of the sun and the moon. The ocean tides are a result of a gravitational pull of the sun and the moon. Hopefully you can see that that was written to inform. That is giving information. You should not swim in areas inhabited by sea lions and seals. You should not swim in areas inhabited by sea lions and seals. That is persuade. More often than not, if an author uses, or a person, you should not do something, they're trying to persuade you, make you believe a certain way. And then look at this one. I'm on a seafood diet. I see food and I eat it. Obviously, that's supposed to be a little goofy. That's supposed to entertain. So again, those are the most common purposes. Okay, so let's also talk about intended audience. So this is closely tied to, what is the audience of this particular piece? So knowing the purpose and knowing the tone can help you, and you basically just ask, for whom is this written? Was this written for a group of beginners? Was this written for a group of tourists? Was this written for a group of experts in the field? So it helps you kind of just understand the overall purpose as well. So the tone, I don't know if you've ever had anyone tell you in your life, don't use that tone with me. A tone is the author's feelings about a topic, how they feel about something. And so if you can determine what their attitude or feeling is, that is when you can pick up on their tone. Some general, tones, again, you look for topic and main idea, but you also just look for words or phrases that have a positive or negative type indication to them. So if they're using positive, uplifting, that the tone might be a little bit more positive. If they're using negative and discouraging type things, that's a negative tone. So again, all of those are going to help you understand kind of the author's reason for writing, their attitude toward a topic. In addition, you also need to be aware of how to be able to pick out a bias and the point of view. So bias is when an author gives their opinion about something. So you look to see, again, tone is very closely related to this. So to look at bias, look for things like all, none, should, would, could, telling you that they're trying to signal either for or against something. Now, if the author, you can't tell if they are biased, that's probably because it's unbiased. Like a neutral or objective source should be unbiased. They're not going to give you their opinion. Or an author can also be unbiased if they give you the good and the bad. If they're weighing equally the positive and negative, that's an unbiased source as well. So bias is when an author makes their opinion known, positive or negative, about a topic. It's important to know this because if someone's trying to influence your thinking and they're presenting their opinion as fact, it can make a difference on what you believe. And then finally, point of view is very, again, tied to all of this, their perspective or their attitude, or it could also mean just simply who is telling the story. All right, so we are going to take a look now at the chapter itself and the associated work. So I'm going to first pull up the Chapter 8 homework and practice sheet. So that's going to pull up into a Word document. So here it is, and you can see here it says author's purpose. So remember, author's purpose is why did the author write a piece of writing? Are they giving information? Are they telling a story? Are they describing using lots of senses? Are they trying to make you believe a certain way? Or are they trying to entertain you? So you're going to see that there are 5 little selections. None of them are terribly long. There are 5 selections, and you're going to use each purpose one time. So read the selection and determine, okay, are they giving me information? Are they telling me a story? Or so on. Once you've used one purpose, don't use it again. If you need to like cross it out as a word bank sort of thing, you can do that. Just make sure you only use each purpose one time as you read through. And again, ask yourself the question, why did the author write this piece of writing? That is your Chapter 8 homework. So you'll turn that in once you're done. Of course, you'll upload it. That's due by Sunday. That should be, yep, the 11th there. All right, so that is due Sunday the 11th, your Chapter 8 homework. Now let's go ahead and pull up your textbook. So in psychology, here's your little introduction, nature versus nurture, one of the bigger debates in psychology. There's your little introduction, so I would encourage you to read the introduction. And of course, as always, you have some beginning of the chapter questions, one of which I always pull and use for our discussion post. So I do use our question here. Let me get in here. Here is our week 11 discussion board from the Chapter 8 text. It says, humans have inhabited the planet Earth for thousands of years, yet we have not learned how to coexist in peace and harmony. Do you believe that violence is a natural part of our behavior? In other words, is conflict built into our psychological makeup? So again, all of these are really just opinions. They're basis for a discussion. They're basis for like you to interact with one another. So you're basically being asked, do you think violence is just part of who we are as a human race? Is this just something that is inside of our DNA? Or maybe do you think it's something that we're taught or we learn? So that's kind of, and that's one of the big questions again, right? Nature versus nurture. So that's your week 11 discussion board. Please make sure you respond by Wednesday for week 11 attendance. And then please make sure you're also interacting with your classmates. Remember, for class participation, you need to be interacting with and responding to 10 classmates, 10 posts throughout the semester. I do keep track. All right, so that's the homework and the discussion board. And of course, the quiz was already talked about in an earlier video. So let's go ahead and get your text and skill sheet practice pulled up. So I have that going behind me here. And we are going to take a look at this very first section. It is over a story called Why and How Do People Lie? That sounds interesting, right? So we're going to go into our text and we're going to go, why and how do people lie? We're going to go right to the reading. So again, as I normally do, I encourage you to pause the video at this point, come back to it in a little bit, and go ahead and read the selection. And that way you can rejoin with the questions once you've read. Okay, I'm hoping you have now paused and read the article. I'm going to go ahead and just do a couple of questions with you. We're looking at our text sheet, part Roman numeral 1A. We're answering questions 2, 7, 9, 10. So I'll do a couple of them with you. Question 2, it says, what's the topic of this reading passage? Well, hopefully you can even tell just from the title, why and how do people lie, that this is about factors related to the act of lying. And as you've read the article, hopefully it gave a bunch of reasons why people lie. So number 2 is C. Okay, we're going to scroll down. I'm going to let you do number 7, the main idea of the final paragraph. I'll let you take a look at that on your own. But we will go ahead and look at number 9. What is the author's tone? How do they feel about this topic? And as you read, hopefully you could tell that this was very factual in nature. And this is actually going to help answer question 10. So I'm going to do them together. So as this article was going on, this author is really just giving us facts about lying, why people lie, the result of lying, how it affects our brains, how our brains are, kind of geared toward this, or how they change. This is all very objective, meaning there wasn't kind of an attitude or a feeling. It was informational. So that answers 9 and 10. When something's objective, the purpose is more than likely to inform. So this answers 9 and 10 together. So 9 was objective, and 10 we said was to inform. So I'll let you answer number 7 on your own. All right, scrolling down, this is going to allow us to practice the concept of topic and argument, which is the basis of chapter 8. So it's going to have you go to passages 3, 4, and 5 on the selected pages there. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to go to the skill focus. I'm going to click in here, and I'm going to go to, it says passage number 3. I'm going to go ahead and read this. So we're going to do this one together. Passage 3. Why are some people happier than others? You might think this question has an easy answer. Aren't some people happier than others because better things happen to them? That's true, in part. But you might be surprised to learn that genetics has a large impact on how happy people are as they make their way through life. So we are answering questions 1 and 2. You can see it says topic and argument here. So the topic, as I look at this, hopefully you can tell the general topic is just happiness. So happiness or levels of happiness. Okay, that's my topic. What's the argument? Like, what is the author trying to say? I think the key part of that is that right here, you might be surprised to learn that genetics has a large impact on how happy people are. So to me, the argument is that the author is saying genetics play a role in happiness. Okay, genetics play a role in happiness. Okay, so that's what you're going to do for numbers, or passages 4 and 5 rather. So passage 4 is right below it. You're going to read that passage and try to come up with the topic. And then what is the author's point? Like, what are they trying to get across? What is their, let's just do this. I like this one anyway. And then you'll do passage 5 on your own. I'm not surprised that adults find children today to be spoiled, but I don't think this is a new phenomenon either. I think it's unfair to fault one single generation of such an old, historically common parent-child dynamic. The way I see it, in one fashion or another, we are all spoiled, but in different ways. Our society is such that everyone feels entitled, even parents. So as I'm reading, the topic to me is like people being spoiled or just spoiled behavior. So that's what I would write here. My topic is spoiled, and I'm just going to say spoiled behavior. Now, what is my... Of course, let's spell the word spoiled correctly. That would help. What is the author's argument? He's saying, wait a minute, this isn't new. Every generation has been spoiled. Everyone is spoiled. So basically, that's what the author is argument, that everyone is spoiled. Not just kids, and you can add that if you want to. All right, so that's passage 3 and 4. We got our topic, we got our argument. You are now doing passage 5. So for that, I would just maybe scroll down. Like, it's going to take a little bit of scrolling, but here it is. Passage 5, and you're not going to answer all 4 of these. You are just answering the argument and support type. So what is the argument? So basically, what is the point the author is trying to make, and how did they support their argument? Did they give facts, statistics, examples, witnesses, observations? Like, how do they support that? So that's what you're doing for passage 5. All right, part C now. No debate, TV violence harms kids. So we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to get back here, and I'm going to go here. Here it is. So again, I'm going to have you, recommend that you pause the video and go ahead and read this selection. Once you've read this selection, you're going to scroll down, and you are answering multiple choice questions 3 and 5. 3 and 5. So let's do 3 together real quickly. In the sentence, make every effort to monitor your child's viewing habits. The word monitor could be replaced by. So if you're monitoring something, hopefully you know that it means you're keeping track of. You're keeping track of. You're checking on it. You're doing whatever it might be, whatever, monitoring it, checking it, recording it, any of that. All right. And then number 5. what is the main idea of the reading? I'm going to have you go ahead and answer that question. And then you're answering question 6. What are a few arguments Dr. Mintle makes about TV and violence? So there are kind of 3 arguments, and that's what you are going to fill out right here. What are 3, I mean, you might find a few more, but there are 3 like big ones. What are her 3 main points? What are her 3 arguments that she says that TV violence harms kids? So we know already there's a bias here. She does believe TV violence harms kids. So you want to really answer that question about, well, what is the argument here? What are we trying to prove about TV violence? Okay, so revisit that if you need to and look to see what are the big arguments she's making, the big points. Okay, so that is part C. All right, back here, Roman numeral 2, apply the skill. What makes psychology unique? So that is the textbook application. So we're going to go to textbook application. You're going to answer questions 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. And I'm going to do just a couple of them with you, and then you'll fill the rest out on your own. So again, I encourage you to pause the video, read the textbook excerpt. All right, hopefully you have read the video, and now we're going to come down here, and we are going to actually just answer. We're going to skip number 1. You are doing number 1, so make sure you do number 1, but I'm going to skip it for now. I'm going to go to number 3. Is the following a fact or opinion? Mental processes represent the most important aspect of psychological inquiry. So what do we think? Mental processes represent the most important aspect of psychological inquiry. Hopefully you're seeing this qualifier phrase, most important, because another psychologist might be like, nope, I don't think that's the most important thing at all. So that is an opinion. So number 3 is A. That is an opinion. Another psychologist might debate that because they use the phrase most important, and that's a qualifier. Okay, so we're also going to look at number 5. Make sure you look at number 5. It's a vocabulary question. It wants to know what the word emerging means. So make sure you answer that one. Okay, and we're going to have you look at number 7. That's author's argument. So which one of those is kind of like the big point that the author is trying to make? I'm doing number 8 with you. What kind of support is offered for the author's claim that scientific predictions must be worded precisely enough to enable them to be tested? So what do we think? What are they saying that we need? Scientific predictions must be worded precisely enough to enable them to be tested. What is the author calling for? Well, hopefully you can see that they're calling for facts. They don't want emotions. They want information that's going to be precise and we can test. So number 8, B. Okay, all right, and then look at number 9. We'll do number 9 together. So it says, which pattern of organization is used, if you recall this? To construct the test, Strong first asked groups of men in different occupations to answer items about activities they liked and disliked. Then the answers given by those who were successful in particular occupations were compared with the responses of men in general to create a scale. All right. So hopefully you could see as they were, talking about this, to construct the test, they first asked groups of men, then they did this. Some people might jump right away to compare contrast because they use the words compare and they use kind of like this, like they're going to like and dislike. However, look at these words again. They first, then they did this. So what they are actually doing is chronological order. They're trying to show what order they did this process. So at first it seems like compare contrast. It does because they use those words, but within that, they're showing how to do something in a particular order. So, oops, come on. Number 9 is D. And I can always tell who watches the videos and who does not whenever these kind of questions are missed. So make sure that there's still a TED Talk, but make sure that you fill in anything that we did not already. I filled in quite a bit up here with you, the first couple there. So make sure you do go back and you fill in the ones that we did not do together. All right, last thing is the TED Talk. And the TED Talk, I think, is especially important. It's about mental illness, which is obviously a big thing in the field of psychology, but also just in general, I think it's so important to talk about this, especially in our society. There's such a negative stigma around it, oftentimes still, that it's really important to address. So this is a really quick one. So there's the link if you wanted to watch it. It is about 8 minutes long when you actually watch the video, so it's not terribly long at all. As you can see, as you read it, it's a lot shorter, I think, than the previous ones. So read your TED Talk, and then what you're doing for your text sheet, you are answering questions 1 and 4. What did we learn about Ruby Wax's mother, and how do you think this affected her career choice? And then 4, what good news and bad news does the speaker offer in paragraphs 6 and 7? So that goes on your TED Talk on the back. Okay. All right. So as a recap from this week, you are completing your Chapter 8 vocabulary quiz by Sunday the 11th. Make sure you view the vocabulary video up there. And then you are submitting your TSP, your text and skill practice sheet, and your Chapter 8 homework sheet by Sunday the 11th as well. If you feel like you need more practice with like purpose or tone or anything like that, please let me know. I am happy to, make a meeting, provide some extra practice. We will talk more about bias in Chapter 9, so you will see more about that. And then, of course, your discussion post your original response by Wednesday for week 11 attendance, and then respond to some classmates for that participation. All right, hope everyone has a great week. Bye.